Hey everyone, Amar here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about why you need to forgive your parents. You need to forgive your parents if you want to have healthy relationships. So I want to get into this topic. It's so key, it's so important for all areas of life, but especially relationships. Before we get into it, just want to say, if you're new to the channel, you like this sort of thing, you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. Also, if you want to stay in touch, please contact me and follow me on Instagram as well. But otherwise, let's get into this video. Why you need to forgive your parents if you want to have healthy relationships. So I touched on this in a recent video I made a couple of videos back, and I just want to get into this. I only mentioned it in passing. I didn't really explore or open up the topic, and what I said in that video was something that I've recently learned, and I've been practicing the forgiveness, and it's quite powerful. But first of all, you've got to understand why we need to forgive. So I said in that video that when we're born and we come into the world, the first people, the first individuals that we kind of relate to are our parents, right? We, on some level, understand that these people are the most important people, right? I don't know if it's intuitive. I don't know if it's because maybe they're the people who are around the most. I don't know why. We just know that your mother and your father are the most important people in your life, right? Even if one of your parents are not there, intuitively you know there's something missing, right? And that again creates a blueprint for how you deal with future relationships. So that's the first thing to understand, is that your mother and father create this almost like a template, right? For how you interact with people of that gender. So your mother, for example, she creates the template, the blueprint for how you would relate to women in your life, whether you're a guy or a girl. And the opposite is also true. The relationship you have with your father and how your father is with you, or if he's not even there or whatever, that creates the blueprint for how you deal with men in your life, right? So these blueprints, let's call them, get imprinted on us very, very early on, like probably pre-verbal, like first few years of life. And because we're literally a clean slate, that imprint goes quite deep. Okay, and then we go into the world and we treat people based upon this like foundational model of a woman or a man based upon these early relationships. So obviously, if you had a good mum and dad, and they were loving and caring and nurturing and supportive and all these things, then maybe you developed a healthy model of what a woman should be, a healthy model of what a man should be, right? But obviously the opposite is also true. If these models and blueprints, and I'm not blaming anyone here, everyone's doing the best they can. If these models or blueprints weren't the healthiest, then you will likely struggle with your relationships in adult life, because the basic model, the basic blueprint you got was kind of flawed, right? It wasn't a healthy blueprint. And again, this isn't no one's fault. Just to give you some examples on this, some common ones that I see, you might see a guy who's like a mummy's boy, right? His mum over nurtures him, maybe smothers him a bit. So when he grows up, he might become kind of like a nice guy, right? Where he's afraid to take the lead, right? Because his mum was so overbearing, right? These are just broad generalizations, but I'm just trying to just give you some examples that you might be familiar with. Another example on the other side could be a girl who has got daddy issues, right? Maybe a dad wasn't really always there or give her the love that she wanted. So now she might go into the world and try to find men who don't really treat her very well, right? So these basic models that we get can influence so much of our relationships, especially intimate relationships when we grow up, right? Another thing that impacts us a lot as well is the relationship between our mother and father, right? What was that relationship like? Because that creates the blueprint again for how you will create intimate relationships. Obviously, if your mother and father had a good, solid relationship, a loving relationship, and that's what you saw, then you got a healthy blueprint for that. But if that's not what you saw, and it was dysfunctional, or there was a lot of fighting and arguing or whatever, then you likely don't have a healthy blueprint for a healthy relationship. You just don't have it. And you can try to fake it, but from my own experience, because I didn't have these things, it doesn't really work. What you've got to do is you've got to start to release the stuff from the past. You've got to release these imprints that you've gotten. We can only release them to a certain level, but we can release them enough that it has a positive impact on our life, right? You're never going to be able to release it fully and become completely clean and clear, because that would just be I don't even know if it's possible. That would be such a high level. Maybe a very small number of human beings have ever reached that absolute pristine state. I don't think most of us need to go that far, but you've got to understand that all of your relationships are based upon these early relationships you had with your caregivers, right? And now you're probably suffering the consequences. So we get to the point of what do we do about it then? Well, obviously, I've said in the title of the video, you've got to forgive your parents, right? And I don't use the word forgiveness lightly. Forgiveness is, it's easy to say, tell you to go and forgive people, go away, go forgive them, dealt with. It's not. I know it's not that easy, right? Because some people have been through some very heavy shit, hard stuff, that it's not as simple as that. And so forgiveness will free you. But at the same time, it might take you time to forgive. A couple of things I can recommend that you do. The first one is just to look for triggers, right? Especially if you're around your parents, right? Because our relationship with our parents is so kind of close, and they're probably the closest people to us, they're also who we pick up a lot of our flaws from, let's say, a lot of our triggers. So I think most people will probably feel triggered by one of their caregivers in some instances, because they're just so close to us. And that gives us a massive clue for what we need to work on. And actually, the more you begin to forgive, not only will you heal the relationships you have with people, intimate relationships, whatever, friendships, socially, you'll actually begin to cleanse some of the conditioning you picked up from them. This is what I'm finding myself, right? So first thing, identify triggers, right? What triggers you? That's the clue. That's obviously something that you need to look at, okay? And every time you feel that trigger, just send forgiveness, right? Maybe it's your mum and she does something and it just triggers you a little bit. Forgive her for that, right? Let it go. That's really what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is like, it's a letting go. I talk a lot about letting go, right? I've even said in one of my other videos, the book Letting Go is one of my favorite spiritual books, because that's all forgiveness is. Forgiveness is you're letting it go. You're letting it go. And the other thing I suggest you do is just to let go or forgive in meditation. A lot of the exercises I share a lot of them are meditative practices. You get comfortable, you close your eyes, you bring up that person, and obviously if you do it right, you'll bring a lot of feeling with that. And then you just say you forgive them in your mind, right? You forgive them. Okay? And if you do it right and you're in touch with yourself enough, it's really going to feel, you're going to feel them shifts, right? It's them shifts that are going to change you. It's them internal shifts that we're seeking, right? And over time, done maybe daily for a period of time, a month or so, maybe longer, eventually you'll begin to release and heal them relationships, right? And what I found is you can maybe forgive enough for a month or so, or however long, and then you might think, I forgive enough now. And then you might need to revisit it 6 months later, or a year later, or maybe a couple of years later, right? Because this stuff goes quite deep. It's unlikely you're going to completely release and forgive fully in one go. But the point is, the more we do it, the freer we become. The more we let these dysfunctional patterns and imprints and blueprints and all of this stuff that we picked up early on, we just start to cleanse it from our system. And because our parents are just so important, so integral to our early life, we've picked up so much from them, and it influences us on so many levels now. So the forgiveness of the parents, right? They were doing the best that they could do, will help you find a little bit of peace, right? But like I said, you might need to revisit in 6 months or a year's time and forgive them some more. But this is the path. This is the journey of growth, right? We just keep releasing, letting go, and we just step more and more into our power and become who we're destined to be, and not imprinted on things that happened in the past, right? That weren't really our stuff in the first place, right? We just learned from our environment. So I think that's everything I've got to talk about in the video. I hope this made sense. I am quite big on forgiveness at the moment. I just find it so powerful. Like I said, it's just another way of letting go, right? So I've almost, because I was so big on letting go, it's almost like I've naturally fell into this kind of path of forgiveness, right? Same thing, really. But yeah, it's so powerful. I'm going to be making another video on this about why you should forgive yourself. So look out for that one. Another big topic. But I wanted to make these separately because this one's more about cleansing the stuff we picked up from other people that wasn't necessarily ours, right? And you deserve to be free, like I always say, okay? So, like I said, that's everything I'm going to talk about. If you enjoyed the video, you got anything to add, any questions, comments, anything at all, hit me up down below. Please go ahead, give me a like, share, subscribe. Really helps me out. Check out my book if you haven't already. I'll put a link down below. But until next time, remember to keep living free and being free. Peace.